Hi, this is SLR Coaching, and in this video we're going to be reviewing this Panasonic GX8 camera. For the past 3 months I have been reviewing this Panasonic GX8 camera. Now I want to say up front that I get nothing from them for doing this, and they don't even offer me a discount at the end, sadly. So I say that to just put you at rest that this is totally impartial and unbiased. I approached them initially as I was genuinely wanting to check out these mirrorless cameras that I'd heard about. Now initially, as it sits at about £800 for the camera and kit lens, I set out to compare it with the Canon 750D, which sells at a similar price. But after growing in confidence with it, I took it out on a professional property shoot with me. I started taking shots with my usual Canon 5D Mark III, a setup that's about £3,000, but then I thought I'd give this GX8 a go. I got as close as possible to capturing the same image, both with 85mm prime lenses. Then I posted the photos onto my Facebook group and asked people to spot which camera they could tell was which from the photos. Honestly, they all said the best pictures were the ones that I'd taken with this, and they just couldn't believe it. You really wouldn't be able to tell if I posted them here in the video, so I'm going to put a link to a blog post below and you can see them there. There were a lot of skeptics when I first announced that I was trying this camera, but they're certainly quieting down now. This camera is so much nicer to work with. This tiltable screen gives me way more variety in my shots, like getting above the shower in this home, and it's far less stress on my back getting into tight spots. In fact, after taking this on a shot for a day, I was able to stay fresh right through the day, where I'd normally be exhausted at the end from carrying around a much bulkier kit. Just look at the difference actually in this kit. Both of these lenses are exactly the same, and the body's even. It is a massive difference. Not only is it lighter and easier to work with, but I feel like I'm having fun with my photography again. Now maybe this is partly due to the fact that I've worked with the same Canon range of cameras for 15 years now, but man, I love taking this camera out. With this pancake lens, my friends are saying, that's an old camera, isn't it? They think I've gone mad, but it's such fun to use, and they can't quite believe I'm getting as good, if not better results with it than with this kit. So let's get into some features. What exactly is it that I'm liking? The electronic viewfinder. When I collected the camera from Panasonic, I thought, what a silly design, who'd use that? But I have to say, a couple of months in, and the majority of the shots that I'm taking with this camera are done with this viewfinder tilted up like this. Not only does it give me a realistic image through the viewfinder, you have the ability to play back your images inside it too. On a sunny day, that is incredibly useful. Unfortunately, you can't zoom in and out while it's in that mode, but we'll forgive them for that. Now I have to say that around the face of the EVF, it is a bit hard if you're used to pushing that in against your eye like I'm used to. I would do this normally with this camera because I'm trying to hold it as tight as I can do, but I've had to learn just to relax and back it off a little bit. There's a great feature too with the sensor, so the display on the back instantly turns off when I look through the EVF here. But unlike any camera I've used before, the screen on the back is still responsive when I'm looking through the viewfinder. Now listen up, as this is one of the best features of this camera. I can choose spot focus as I would on my DSLR, but where I would normally be going into my point selection and choosing where I wanted my focus point to go, now I just touch and drag on the back of the screen. This is an incredible feature, and when I've got friends to try it out, they've been blown away by it. This is one of those features that makes you think, why has nobody thought of this before? It's a big part of why I'm finding my photography easier and way more fun. Now, while I'm talking about focusing, I have to tell you about my favorite feature, and it's not what Panasonic make a big deal about. It's the focus tracking. Now, as a photographer who only shoots with spot focusing, that means I choose to focus on a small area of the image and I select it manually. So usually I would either leave the spot in the center and I would point the camera at it and then I would recompose my image, or I would have to click up here and I would move that spot around to find it in the right place. Well, with focus tracking, I look through the viewfinder and with my finger on the screen on the back, I select the part of the scene I want to focus and I touch it. From that point on, as long as the area I've focused on doesn't go out of my scene, my focus point tracks it. That means I can set someone's face and then move the composition to get it just how I want it, and that focus marker stays on them. It is incredibly useful. When I was taking some property shots the other week, I could choose an item to be in focus near the front of the scene and then line everything up without needing to worry about my focus point. Seriously, when I got started with this, I thought I'm never going to go back to my DSLR and be able to use that the same way. It is absolutely a game changer. Now there's silent shooting. Because there aren't any mirrors in here, I can take absolutely silent photos. Now, I don't do weddings, but if I did, this would be a powerful feature. When I do shoot at events, and I'm often close up behind people sort of shooting over their shoulder, quite often I've made people jump as they've heard the thing click over them, but now totally silent. Image stabilization is another shocker. I've been teaching photography for around 5 years now, and all my students will tell you that I bang on about not shooting below a shutter speed of about 125th, else you're very likely to get blurred shots. Now with this camera, the body has stabilization built in, and if you use a Panasonic lens that also has stabilization, you benefit from the dual effect, and that really does eliminate bad shots from movement. Now, I was on a shoot just last week when I wanted children walking towards me in a corridor. The focus was the displays on the walls, and I wanted the children to be blurred as they came past. So I shot it at a 20th of a second. Now, with my DSLR, I would never attempt that without a tripod, but with the Panasonic, I was confident I could pull it off, and I did. Nightscapes would be tons easier, and again give me the opportunity to use it in situations when I would usually give up. If you're shooting video, this again is a huge feature that will mean you really don't need a gimbal or Steadicam. You can literally just walk about with the camera. Now Wi-Fi, I love that modern cameras all include Wi-Fi. For years it's been the reason why lots of people have left their DSLRs at home and taken photos on their phones instead. Because we all like to share those experiences live, not have to wait till we get home and plug our cards into the computers. Now with photos, the app is great. It connects reliably, allows me to choose my images individually and pull them down. The only thing I was disappointed about was the fact that I couldn't download raw files. Now my Canon app does this, so it is doable. Come on Panasonic, you need to work on this one. Now there is a workaround. If, like me, you shoot in RAW, then you can change your settings so you shoot RAW and JPEG, or you can actually convert inside the camera that RAW image to a JPEG and export it. So you're not stuck, it's just something you need to be aware of. You can remotely operate your camera like you would expect, but here is the deal clincher for me. You're listening up? I can now record video remotely too. Now, neither Canon or Nikon let you do this, and for me personally, this is massive. My business now revolves around me recording videos like this, and 90% of the time I'm doing it alone. Even with the flip out screen that lets me see where I'm sitting, I have the challenge of focusing and hitting the record button. Now, as in this case, I use the EOS utility software, and that goes straight into my computer, but it's not always possible to have that. With this app, I could be in a field with my camera on a tripod and I can set everything up from here. Focus it, then hit record. Seriously, when I saw this feature, I said to my wife, I have to have this camera. More importantly, I'm just launching my Pro Video Academy, where I'm teaching others how to record professional quality videos like this. And with this feature, I am steering them all to this Panasonic G series of cameras. Sorry Canon and Nikon, you really do need to catch up with this one. Now when I picked this camera up from Panasonic, they were really going on about this amazing 4K photo feature where you can record a burst of photos at 30 per second and then choose your favourite one after. I said to them that I couldn't see myself using it, as I always shoot in RAW and this only gives me JPEGs. But I thought I'd better give the thing a go, and man did we have some fun. We got photos of my dog jumping over logs on holiday, running past me along the beach, Then we stepped it up, brought out the air rifle and some eggs. Yep, we tried this a few years back with my Canon 5D. This gives me 5 shots per second. And it gave me some shots, but it was limited to hit that at that split second where you're going to see this egg explode. Now, trying this with 30 shots per second, we got some incredible photos, as you can see. Then we tried the same thing with water bombs. This is what I mean about having fun with this camera, and it got my kids involved too. It's like working on a project together. Other features I enjoyed were the panoramic shot that let you move the camera from left to right, and then it stitches a series of photos as you go. This is remarkably useful actually, and I used it commercially only the other week. There's also a time-lapse feature that worked really well the other week when I was trying to do some star trails. You can tell it the intervals and how many shots to take. Normally to do this with my DSLR, I would have to set up a remote release that I can program it into, but it's all built into this. Now, I'm not interested in the effects and things that it does, but maybe that appeals to some. Well, I have to mention some negatives, as I want to be totally honest with you. This one's not a huge one, but the batteries don't last as long, so you'll need at least 2, if not 3, if you're planning on a full day shoot. More seriously, the autofocus isn't as good as my DSLR, especially in the tracking mode. Now, it works fine on clearly defined subjects like me that are set apart from the background, but when I try to do some close-up shots of looking along my keyboard and getting quite a macro shot, picking out one letter and blurring the rest, it really struggled. And it wasn't because I was too close, because in manual mode I could lock onto it. From seeing comments online, it seems I'm not the first to discover this, so it looks to be a known problem. The configurable function buttons, there's way too many of them on here. I found myself pressing them by mistake as there's very little space around the back of this camera that isn't buttons. Now, my friend is a GH5 owner and he loves the fact that it has all these customizable buttons. And he's in there and he's set them all up to just how he wants. But I'm just not wired that way and would rather a simpler design and some of these buttons just removed. Something that really annoyed me was the slight delay or shutter lag that more like you would expect to get on a compact camera. Now, you wouldn't necessarily notice this, and I haven't seen it since, but I was doing a shoot at our church for the Easter guest services, and while the celebration was going on, the choir was singing, and I was trying to get a photo of them just as they were clapping, and every time I was a fraction off. Now, it's a split second, but it's there, and I need to mention it. Now, the biggest negative of all is that on a fairly regular basis, I've had the camera lock up on me. Now, if I just bought this, I'd be taking it back to the supplier. But as this one's on loan, I'm just going to be mentioning it when it goes back. Chances are it's just some fault with this particular model, and maybe as a loan camera, it gets thrown around quite a bit. I don't know quite what it has been, but I have to just take the battery right out and back in before it will work. So in summary, and actually despite these negatives, I am absolutely buying one of these next month. Honestly, I am really sad to be giving it back. I've been spoilt with some gorgeous lenses that they've sent me, and when I buy mine, I'm just going to get this 20mm pancake prime lens and hopefully this 85mm equivalent prime here. It is a lot dearer and it's bulkier, but it is incredible, the quality. I should point out as well that the lenses are half the numbers that you would find on a typical camera, full frame DSLR. So for instance, this one is a 42.5, but that means I'm getting an 85mm equivalent. So when I say my 20mm prime, it's actually the equivalent of a 40. Now, without getting technical, unless you have a full frame camera, you're getting some crop on there anyway. So your 50mm on something like a 70D is actually 80mm. So the equivalent on a micro four thirds would be 40mm. If I'm totally confused, you leave me a comment and I'll try to explain it a bit better. The other thing to note is that the depth of field is not as shallow on a micro four thirds as on a DSLR. If you're used to a really shallow depth of field on f2.8, you might be a little bit disappointed with the same aperture on this. That's largely why I'm buying a couple of prime lenses, because as you can see, the results are just superb. I just want again to be totally honest and let you know that up front if you're considering jumping across. Now, as a professional, I get to use some lovely lenses, and some of you would love to be out for a day with this thing strapped around your neck, but not me. I would never actually take this out for the day. In fact, that's why I bought the much cheaper Canon 1300D, but there is a compromise in quality. In the past few months that I've had this camera, even if we've just been popping around friends, this camera has come with me. And everywhere I go, people are falling in love with it. It's surprising how these cameras aren't really being taken more seriously. People just assume that they aren't comparable with a DSLR. But I have to say, after living with this camera for 3 months, it's totally changed my perception. The quality is on par, if not better. The usability is far better, and I can take it anywhere with me. And doesn't it just look gorgeous? Thank you so much, Panasonic, for agreeing to let me have this camera so long. You've certainly convinced me, and I'll be sure to evangelize it wherever I go. Ultimately, I want people to enjoy their photography and take their camera with them everywhere. I honestly think this is where Panasonic and the other mirrorless manufacturers seem to be winning. While Canon and Nikon are all about getting better photos, Panasonic seem to have focused on the photographers themselves and how they can make photography easier and more fun. Well, hopefully you found that interesting. And I've tried to be as honest and real as I can. Please leave any comments below. If you found it useful, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel, as there are more videos about this and other cameras coming up. Thank you ever so much. I'll see you soon.